we last left off, Jericho had beaten Nick Gage in a hellacious match that got them in trouble with Domino's, though it looks like that controversy blew over pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so after that, he faced Juventud Guerrera, where the stipulation was that for Jericho to win, he must land a move from the top rope. Not everyone has enjoyed the whole Labors of Jericho thing, and for me, this might be the match that pushed things a little bit too far for me. It's by no means a fault of the two guys in the ring, as they are great here, and I have to find out what Juvi does to look so young. Yeah. I mean, like, you look at a picture of him now, and it's like, and they tell you how old he is, and it's like, lies!
Yeah.
No, cannot be. That's got to be his son. That's got to be a nephew. That's got to be a clone of him.
Right.
But it can't actually still be Juvi at this point. But to get back to the match, the stipulation doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's also not very well explained. I honestly thought that all that had to be done was to land one move from the top rope to win, and the rules of that weren't clear until we saw how it played out in the match. Apparently, he has to land a move from the top rope and then either pin or submit him. The latter of which, by the way, was a pretty goofy-looking spot where Jericho drops from the top rope onto Juvi and just kind of puts him in the walls of Jericho somehow. Juvi eventually gets out of it, and they go back and forth for a bit, with Juvi getting closer near falls and landing a Juvi driver, but then Jericho hits the Judas effect, and Juvi is down. However, he landed it while on the ground and can cover him, to which Jericho looks right at the camera with a dumbfounded expression on his face before going on the top rope, landing a flying Judas effect to finally get the pin and win the match. I'd honestly would have much preferred a simpler match between these two, or perhaps a more straightforward stipulation, as the top rope stuff kind of dragged things down throughout. But it was nice to see Juvi again. What did you think about all this?
Yeah, I thought it was a decent enough match. It was cool to see Juvi. You know, they obviously had a bunch of matches in WCW, and I think, like you said, the stipulation was kind of confusing, where it wasn't super clear. Okay, do you have to hit your finishing move? Like, it has to be the winning move from the top? You know, so it wasn't super clear. I don't know whose, you know, kind of responsibility that is between the announcers or even MJF the first time he announced it. But yeah, there was some clumsy spots for sure. I thought, to their credit, the top rope Judas effect looked pretty decent, but it was just nice to see, hey, in 2021 we got a Jericho versus Juventud match, and kind of the novelty of it, I think, carried me through it.
It's like going back to the 90s.
Yeah, truly.
After the match, Jericho is attacked by a rampaging Wardlow to set up the next match where he will face him, and the stipulation is that MJF will be at ringside. It was kind of hinted that it might be that he's the referee, which would have been fun, but instead he was just at ringside. Wardlow's strength coupled with Jericho's exhaustion means that it was mostly heat, as Jericho got one codebreaker at the start and then eats offense from Wardlow for several minutes uninterrupted. Powerbomb after powerbomb, suplex after suplex, just no mercy for Jericho as he barely manages to hold on and continues to look for his chance. His time comes when Wardlow puts Jericho on the top turnbuckle for the casualty of war, as they call it, but he plays to the crowd, which creates an opening for Jericho to drop down, knock him on his back, and put him in the walls of Jericho. Wardlow isn't looking too good, so MJF rakes Jericho's eyes behind Ref Aubrey's back and breaks up the hold. A victory that is short-lived because MJF then tries to run into the ring with his Dynamite Diamond ring and is caught immediately. MJF is ejected, Wardlow is incensed, and while Ref Aubrey is dealing with this, Jericho grabs Floyd the Bat and bashes Wardlow across the face and hits the Judas effect just in time for the ref to turn around and count the pin, winning the match and finishing his fourth labor. It certainly wasn't the best of labors, but it definitely made Wardlow look like a total beast throughout.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. They did a good job of making Wardlow look like a monster, which I think they've been doing a good job of in general. Wardlow kind of scares me in a good way. He's just a big, beefy guy. He's, you know, kind of the same way that Brian Cage kind of scares me, but I think even more so than Brian Cage. I think they do a good job of building him up to be an absolute monster. And Jericho, props to Jericho for just, during every labor, really, but really just doing the work in this match. I mean, just absolutely taking a beating, making the other guy look good until the very end, where he needs the win to advance the story. So I think all around, this was played very well.
There's something about Brian Cage where he looks a little bit adorable, where Wardlow just looks mean.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I don't know what it is with Brian Cage. I think he's just so cartoonishly big that he just looks like, I don't know, like a caricature of a muscular man. I don't know.
When is he gonna get his action figure?
I don't know. I think it's coming. It's got to be coming soon. I mean, he's he's the ideal action figure. He essentially is one already.
You just need to recast a He-Man action figure.
Yeah, exactly, and then you're set. So I don't know. One of these next few lines, he'll get in.
Well, to get back to the labors of Jericho, so post match, MJF is not a man to go into something like this without a backup plan, and sure enough, Shawn Spears runs in and pounds on Jericho to try and soften him up even more before his inevitable match with MJF. Sammy Guevara runs in to try and break it up, but Wardlow is back up at that point, and the two of them overwhelm Sammy, while MJF locks in the salt of the earth on Jericho, who tries to tap out to the indifference of MJF. What a bastard. Hagar eventually runs down to clear the ring, but the damage is already done, and MJF has one more trick up his sleeve. Jericho may have finally gotten his rematch, but MJF still chooses the stipulations, and for the final labor, he will not only be barred from using the Judas effect during the match, he can't even come out to the song Judas. The nerve of it.
The nerve. Absolute nerve.
Even more surprising than those stipulations, though, is the fact that they gave the match away for free on TV instead of holding it off for the pay-per-view. Though they do end up having a match on the pay-per-view anyway, so it's kind of a moot point now. But I can also see why this particular match wasn't going to be on the pay-per-view. It's still a good match, but I wouldn't call it a pay-per-view quality one, nor is it the kind of match that gets people pumped to see what's next, given the way that it ends. It starts off well enough with Jericho coming out to the crowd singing his theme song without the music playing, which it makes MJF
so cool.
get this very peeved look on his face. And on top of that, Jericho remains dominant for the opening few minutes of the match. MJF is such a perfect heel because his selling is top notch whenever he needs to make something look painful. He eats a springboard drop kick like a champ. I love it when he eats that kind of move. But he's also legitimate enough that you can buy it when he kicks out of big moves or manages to make a comeback. What it ends up coming down to, though, is a battle of submissions, as MJF locks in the salt of the earth on Jericho's bad arm, but he rolls out and puts him in the walls of Jericho. However, MJF quickly manages to roll out of it and kicks Jericho away. They slug it out for a bit before MJF puts Jericho in the walls of Jericho himself. The nerve again.
That's right.
How could he? But his inexperience with the move shows as Jericho makes it to the ropes to break the hold. MJF goes for the Dynamite Diamond Ring to finish Jericho for good, but he's caught by Ref Aubrey, who takes the ring and throws it away. While this is happening, however, Jericho manages to hit him with Floyd the Bat and almost goes for the Judas effect before catching himself and stopping halfway through, wanting to make sure he doesn't trip over the stipulation there. Using this moment's uncertainty, MJF boots him, locks in the salt of the earth again, and actually manages to submit Jericho. MJF, through his nonsensical challenges, proves himself that he was the better man. He ended up not being able to use the Dynamite Diamond Ring while Jericho hit him with a bat. Even if there was a moment's hesitation for Jericho, who had to stop himself from using the Judas effect, MJF recovered quickly enough to take advantage of that and crank in the salt of the earth. So, I mean, in the end, it's Jericho loses about as clean as this kind of match can be, because Jericho probably has more heel points, cheating points at the end of this than MJF does, and he still manages to tap out Jericho. So what did you think when you first saw this match? Did you think it was a good idea that they didn't save this ending for the pay-per-view?
Yeah, I do. And, I don't know if it's the benefit of hindsight. I mean, we're talking about this a little bit after All Out, so we know what happened. But I think it did kind of raise the stakes and make things desperate for Jericho, at least the outcome of this fifth labor. And it also makes MJF look smart. I mean, he looks like a smart heel. He put Jericho through all of this. He set him up, to fail, and Jericho failed. So it makes both guys' motivations make sense. Jericho desperately wants to prove himself that he can still go, and MJF is setting Jericho up for failure, a guy he hates a lot. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and it set up kind of a very desperate match for the pay-per-view.
Right. And yeah, as we said, this does eventually lead to a pay-per-view match. We didn't know this when they initially did the final labor of Jericho.
Right.
So it was just, oh no, Jericho lost at the end of that. And my concern is kind of what you were getting at, that Jericho was so... This is a babyface thing that really annoys me, where a babyface is so willing to play into the heel's hands because it's some way honorable or something like that. But in wrestling, honor just means that someone else gets to take advantage of you.
Right. And it's happened a few times in AEW.
Yeah, I mean, even the Cody thing where he let MJF whip him, he took it like a champ, and there was some really good stuff, like MJF realizing that it wasn't going to stop him. But still, come on, man. Did you need to do that? Wow, I guess he doesn't want to fight me. I guess he's a big wussy. I'll just come out every week and just call him a wussy. Instead of going for his ridiculous sadomasochistic nonsense. And I was worried after this match that Jericho would have one giant pity party on the next AEW. Doesn't exactly work out that way. He's just basically he's obsessed, but he's not throwing a pity party for himself. He wants one more match with Jericho, and MJF doesn't want to do it again, but to sweeten the deal, Jericho says that he will retire if he loses the match. And, retirement stipulations don't work for me, as the stakes involved end up overshadowing whether the match is good or not. Instead of considering how the match will play out, I'm focused on the outcome only. And maybe for others, it's not so overwhelming of a stipulation, but it's just not my cup of tea. And for what it's worth, I think this all but guaranteed that Jericho was going to win. We saw how it played out at the pay-per-view, which we'll talk about in the next episode. But what do you think about these kinds of high stakes in matches?
I mean, for the most part, I do agree in terms of, like, okay, if this is a loser leaves town match, that's the trope of this. Do you just focus on the near falls and kind of not focus on the wrestling as much? But I will say this one worked for me solely because at this point in time, Jericho has done, at this point, this is 2 years of AEW officially.
Right.
He's done a lot for AEW. He was the first world champion. He created a stable and has been pushing a lot of young people. He's already on the commentary team for Rampage. I could buy that this could be the end for Jericho, at least until some other thing brings him out of retirement. So in this case, it kind of worked for me, but I do agree that it can sometimes overshadow the actual match, and you just kind of worry, okay, was that a 3 count? Kind of focusing on the near falls or how many near falls there are, as opposed to the builds up to those falls, right? So I do get what you're saying. I think in this case, I could almost buy Jericho retiring. So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to retire eventually, but I just didn't think...
Yeah.
He's got the cruise in 8 months. He's not going to be there not wrestling, you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
And that's the kind of things that go through my head when someone throws out a retirement stipulation. The guy's got another year or 2 on his contract. They're not going to pay him to stay at home or just to do commentary. And that takes me out of it more than it probably should, but that's what happens when you say that kind of stipulation.
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. I totally forgot about the cruise thing.
That'd be a fun cruise. Hey, let's go on the Jericho cruise. He's not going to wrestle, and he's just going to be kind of sad.
He's ringing the bell or something, yeah.